Hello, my name is Tia Price, and today I'm going to be presenting my project to you guys. So the project that I am going to be doing is titled Using Daily Prompts to Increase Walking Duration and Frequency, a Multiple Baseline Approach. So the rationale for my project or the study was just to determine whether that daily prompting could increase walking habits for an individual who engaged in minimal daily physical activity. So as we know, low daily walking can contribute to a decrease in cardiovascular health, but not only that, just a decrease in health overall. So we wanted to find a sustainable way to increase it. So that way, even when the project is over, they're still being able to do this. It has to be sustainable enough to where they can just go out and do it on their own. So this particular participant, prior to the study, had low daily walking or just low physical activity altogether. So they work in an office where they don't get too many opportunities to go out and walk or do any type of physical activity. And once they get home, they're pretty much living a sedentary lifestyle as well and not doing much movement. So they did determine that, walking nearby would be best for them. So that way, it was easier to get to. So this particular participant here is named Zavira, and it's a 49-year-old neurotypical female who is typically engaging in less than 5 minutes of walking per day outside of, the normal walking back and forth to the kitchen or upstairs to the bedroom, just a normal walking. It was nothing outside of that. So this data was collected across 3 different settings. They have the indoor setting, also a park, and a cul-de-sac as well. So within these 3 settings, those are something that they could easily get to. She could go outside. Right there, she has a cul-de-sac down the hill where she could just walk in, do as many laps as she would like. Also the indoor for just, daily use. And then also there was that park setting, which there's a park down the street. So it was pretty easy to get to in this residential setting. So that way she's not having to go too far and put in all that travel time that she may not have. So for our method, the design that we chose was a multiple baseline design across those 3 settings. And then the independent variable that was used during this, it consisted of a scheduled verbal and visual prompts to initiate that walking. So it was pretty much every day just having that visual reminder, hey, you got to walk today. And then also a phone call like, hey, make sure you're walking today. Let's make sure that walk, just those prompts and those reminders to know, hey, I need to walk today. Hey, this needs to be on my schedule. The dependent variable was that total walking duration, which was done per day. And it was measured in minutes using like that direct observation and also a Fitbit, because Fitbits are pretty good at tracking not only like how far you're walking, but how long, and even calories and all of that you're burning. It's always good to look at so that way you understand like what all is happening within that workout or that walk. So the procedure, I collected baseline data without prompts. So it was just seeing where they were at, like what type of walking are you doing prior to beginning the actual study. So we would start with one and then move on to the other once we get that data, and then pause that one. Well, not pause, but see where that one's at. And then once you get to a steady movement on that one, then you move on to the next one. So then we introduced the intervention sequentially in each setting while continuing to collect that daily data. So when we move into these results, in baseline, the walking duration was pretty low in all of the settings with minimal variation going on. But once that intervention was introduced, the walking, it pretty much increased immediately, and it was sustained in that setting. So we saw that same pattern when we moved to the other settings as well. But a finding that was very important is that there was a dip that began to occur across the outdoor settings. And it did happen multiple times, and it was because it was raining outside. So when there was inclement weather, those walking levels went right on down, because you can't walk outside in the rain. I mean, you could, but that's not likely. So then once the rain had subsided, those levels went right back up. So if we look here in our graph, if we start with the baseline for indoors, you can see it was pretty much like around 15 for that first day, and then it drops to pretty much 0 in the whole baseline. So it's very minimal walking occurring, right? Then the day that we start the intervention shoots right on up to 20, and then we start to decrease again. Then we start back up and it's pretty much steady. We have a little step there and then we go back down, we stay back up, but pretty much it was increased. It was all higher than it was to start in that baseline throughout the time. When we look at this park setting, it also started out low. It started out at 0. It did have a little peak, went up, and then went right back down and stayed down for the rest of that baseline time. And then as soon as we started that intervention, it shot right on up to 50. And then it did go down, went back up, and then it pretty much stayed up for a good time. And then when we see this drop down here, it goes right on down to show these 2 days in 0. It's because it began to rain. So then after the rain was gone, we shoot back up and we stay up, we come back down, rain, go back up, and then we shoot back down, pretty much a straight decline, and then we stay down because more rain throughout the days. So that is our first outdoor setting, and we'll see that on the days that it was raining outside, that indoor setting did increase. So she did more walking during those times indoors because she wasn't able to do any walking outdoors. That's also pretty much holds true for the cul-de-sac as well. It started off in the baseline, it was low, went up, came back down, went up, came back down. And then for the intervention, it pretty much stayed steady at an increase. It did drop down for those days that it was raining, and then we see it shoot back up until it begins to rain again. So it is pretty much showing us that it was pretty steady in that indoor setting, because even though when she was not able to go outside, she was able to do some sort of physical activity and walking there. So the interpretation is that there was a staggered increase in walking across settings, which suggests that the intervention with the prompts and reinforcement, it was pretty much responsible for the change. And then the implications that we found here is that this method could be effective in a low-cost way to increase that physical activity versus going to the gym or doing anything else. We could do that in individuals with low baseline movement, and it's going to work across varied environments as well. So the limitations that I did find was that the weather definitely affected that outdoor setting, because while sometimes people may be okay with walking in a little bit of rain, and when it's pouring outside, the walking is not going to occur. So also there was a short study duration limits. So it's easier to make conclusions about long-term maintenance. So there's also the future directions. It could extend the study plan for environmental barriers, and also fade those prompts to test for independence. So in summary, I would say that those daily prompts paired with reinforcement increased walking during those multiple settings. And then this approach showed promise for promoting this sustainable, independent physical activity. And that's pretty much my project. I would just say that moving forward, if I was to do this project again, I would focus on those limitations, that outdoor setting, and find some sort of backup plan as to what could we do if it was raining outside. What could we implement? Obviously, she was still able to walk indoors, but you might get a little satiated in that as well. Imagine it's raining all week. What would you be able to do instead of just walking indoors? Is there another outdoor walking resource that is covered, or is there something else that you could do there? I will also focus on just how long-term we're looking at and see what that would look like as well. And that is my project, and thank you all for listening.